Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of System Link, this time for Wednesday, the 20th of August, 2025. I'm your host, Jonathan Garrett, joined, as always, by my co-host, Mike Hazelton from the Xbox Guide. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, ready for a jazzed up System Link, just in time for Gamescom.
Absolutely. We've spruced it up, ready for our highlights from Gamescom 2025. Obviously, Jeff had his opening night live showcase yesterday, and we've got a few bits and pieces we want to cover. We're going to be diving in. You're going to notice a few different segments now that have got some jolly intros to them as we try to up our production value a little bit here at Burly Bird, and we're giving this a little go. We're going to pilot this to see how we're doing. Evening to everyone jumping into chat, but also you can check out this episode on our video on demand version and also audio version on Thursday, straight after the show is done. So, let's dive straight in to our headlines. So, kicking things off, this is actually a story from a couple of weeks ago now, but we really felt it was important to mention. Xbox announced another major first-party cancellation. This time, it was Avalanche Studios' Contraband that they'd partnered with through Xbox Game Publishing. We don't know the state of that team right now. Given that they have other IP that they've developed, it's possible that they're still, it might have been a reduction, but we actually don't have much detail on that. But a real bit disappointment, this one. This one really stung. We hadn't seen anything beyond that CG announcement trailer, but I know you and I, just for the concept of it, we were very much looking forward to the co-op of what this could be.
Yeah, it was similar to State of Decay. I think we're both concerned about State of Decay. Still are concerned about State of Decay. This was always at risk. It was just, I think, because we'd got through that wave of cancellations, we were hoping it was still going. But, I mean, they've said it's on hold, so hopefully we may see it in the future. But it generally seems like pretty bad news for the studio.
Yeah, didn't know if that was going to be a situation where a bit like they had with Hi-Fi Rush and Tango, where they ended up, sort of reforming themselves. It doesn't feel the same as when Toys for Bob divested from Activision. The wording, like you said, it kind of throws it off a bit in terms of us being able to predict where this is going to land. My belief is I think this is gone, this is done, which is such a shame, and another symptom of some really bad management from them.
And considering, I think Xbox fanboys have liked to criticize Sony for their roadmap, the Xbox roadmap's getting pretty thin, considering the number of studios they have now. So,
given what we were expecting out of them too in that sort of time period,
absolutely,
a tricky one. Obviously, all eyes are kind of now back on Sony now because they've done lots of pivoting away from their live service push. Whether I think Fair Games, would be reasonably on the bubble there. I don't really know where that's heading, but given the sort of very high-profile closures and cancellations that have been reported, it's a weird time. It's been a very strange mid-gen this generation, with a lot of these cutbacks happening. Earlier this week, we had Nintendo do a 40-minute deep dive into Kirby Air Riders, the first in, I think, 20 years we've had a sequel that was originally on the GameCube. I found this sort of quite unremarkable, particularly. It was really nice to see Sakurai talk very openly about game development being challenging and them iterating on it. They made a lot of little digs about it, being similar to Mario Kart. I don't think it particularly hooked me. I'd be very curious to know what they're going to price this thing at. But this one, as much as I appreciated the deep dive, I think a lot of people are clamoring for Metroid. And even though that is apparently still coming this year, this one didn't hook me particularly. It looks very jolly. I mean, the art style is very reminiscent of Smash Bros. Ultimate. But I don't know. I wasn't wholly convinced on this one like I was with Donkey Kong Bonanza. I think I'm still a bit uncertain at this stage. I'd like to know more in terms of pricing and sort of what perhaps future plans will be.
Did you play the original on GameCube?
I did not. It's a big gap in my knowledge, so I'm wondering if because I don't have any legacy with it.
Maybe you should try. Oh, it's going to be extortionate, I guess. But if there's a way to play it emulated or something, maybe you can give it a go. Also, on pricing, it's going to be 50 or 70 quid, isn't it? So it's not going to be cheap.
Yeah, Donkey Kong was, what, 50, 58 or 62. It's one of those, I think. So
Yeah.
I can imagine it being north of 50 for sure. I have been trying to build out my GameCube collection, so I'm wondering if if I can find it. I don't know what this is going for. I've not seen it. I bet it's silly.
It feels like something that will be expensive.
Yeah,
but
and I don't know. I'm not saying this with any knowledge, but it also feels like the kind of game that was like one of the only games to use the broadband adapter. I don't know why I feel like just something like that would have definitely been, late Nintendo, really, really sort of towards the end of the life cycle. I don't know. Yeah.
I actually quite like the look of it. I just like how focused it looks compared to Mario Kart, and I'm a bit burnt out by Mario Kart generally. So I'd be more interested in it if I had a Switch 2. But yeah, it's at least it's another first-party game that's coming down the pipe.
For sure, and they're packing this first year. And I really like, actually, given the fact that Nintendo are traditionally so big on backwards compatibility, it's actually really great to see them go, no, we want you to make the jump. We want you to make the leap to the next console. And that there is part of me that does really like that. Like, I have no issue with, Microsoft being third party. Obviously, we're seeing PlayStation do that now with Helldivers. But I also really like the idea that when I invest in a console that I'm going to stick with for 5, 6, sometimes 7 years, I like feeling like that investment had led to a meaningful leap. I'm playing stuff I couldn't play before. So even if stuff ends up being ported to PC or whatever, I do like that feeling that initially that your new hardware is playing things it couldn't do before. So hopefully we're going to see Nintendo continue to follow that pattern. We mentioned it already. I never thought this day would come. But not only is Helldivers 2 coming out on Xbox, but we are tomorrow, actually, I believe. I think it's out tomorrow, along with Gears of War Reloaded on PlayStation. They are crossing over with what is the only other logical crossover that I could think of for this game, Halo ODST. They already did a Killzone tie-in. They had some Hellghast skins and weaponry with that for Killzone earlier this year. But having a Halo ODST, they've added the shotgun, the assault rifle, the silenced pistol variant from ODST as well, along with a bunch of skins and cosmetics and their new legendary Warbond. Very, very cool. And we're seeing, weirdly, a lot of Halo news at the moment. Like the talk of the incubated projects going on at Halo Studios. You've got the Unreal Engine 5 mainline title. Rumours of a Halo remake. Halo Infinite just got a big update as well. So there seems to be a bit of momentum here, and I certainly think this is them dipping a toe, seeing what the PlayStation audience, how they respond to it. Evening, James. Thank you for jumping in on YouTube, checking out our new souped-up version of System Link. I know you're an avid audio listener as well, so I really appreciate you jumping in, man. But yeah, this is really exciting. This is going to be something that I'm going to be picking up. This is going to get me back on my PlayStation playing this game. I know that a good friend of mine, Jason, shout out to Jason, whose son was born today, by the way. Congratulations to him as well.
Oh, amazing.
Which is awesome news. He is very, very keen to pick this up on Xbox and really excited. So, yeah, it's I think this is a really smart play by Microsoft and also by Sony as well, allowing this to happen.
Yeah, it'll be really nice to see. It just seems like you said, a match made in heaven, and just getting the right audio and visuals for those weapons in particular it'll be really cool seeing them in Helldivers. It's made me much. Although, having seen you stream it and read the reviews of it and stuff, it seemed like something I'd be interested in. It does just give me that extra impetus to actually want to get it, having the Halo crossover. So,
yeah, for sure. And I think it's very, because it doesn't push the narrative too much, and it's very focused in terms of its co-op. You can just jump in as a pair. Like, you don't have to go into open matchmaking. It's got really good scale difficulty, a lot of replayability. I definitely think it's something that you and I will be talking about and debating whether we get it into a future stream, potentially. Aiden, FTW, thank you so much for jumping into chat. Great to see you guys. Thank you for jumping in. We'll be looking at our community feedback on our most anticipated games for 2025 later in the show. Moving swiftly along with our headlines, Remedy have had a mixed report recently. They're very explicit in their financial reporting and speaking publicly about the success of their games. They're talking about FBC Firebreak not hitting their sales targets. It's done extremely well, apparently, in terms of engagement, via both PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass. It launched day and date in both of those services. But they've said that sales were particularly soft, and they've got a lot of work ahead in terms of helping with onboarding. They want to adjust the tutorial, the progression, and trying to relook at those systems. It's the first time they've ever done a multiplayer game. We came away pretty tepid from our experience with the beta. and I think it's gonna take a minute for them to reassess and see what this is gonna lead. They've got at least a year's worth of content planned for it leading into 2026, so they're not just jumping ship. We've seen games like both Control and Alan Wake 2 both profitable now, both having long sales tails as well, which was really cool. But this one definitely did not land with this sort of widespread enthusiasm that I think perhaps they were hoping for, and that has certainly dented its perception.
Yeah, it's a weird one for me. Really didn't enjoy it. If I was playing it on my own, I would have switched off after like 5 or 10 minutes. So it just didn't feel good to me. We stuck at it for an hour or so, didn't we?
Yeah.
But it's so undercooked. It almost feels like they're using it as a test bed for a game they've got in mind to produce in the future. Like the fact it's on both Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, it's just as if surely they can't expect it to sell that well when it's on both of those. So yeah, it suggests to me, as much as they've got this content planned and I'm sure they want it to do well, maybe they're just testing the water for something bigger and more fleshed out.
I'm glad that they mentioned progression in it, because I think that was one of the issues we faced, which was that it felt like it was just a slog. We didn't feel like we were making any meaningful progress, and it was just waves upon waves of enemies with no real sense that you were doing anything to progress the level.
Yeah, I mean, we got through to the next room once we realised what we were doing. Again, there was very little explanation of what to do, which maybe is fixed in the full release. But my character just wasn't fun to play. Maybe I picked a bad class, but it was just like the enemies were kind of spongy. There were a couple that were fun to kill, but the rest, it was just, it was a bit of a mess, the whole thing.
Yeah, and look, conceptually, having the idea of them doing a spin-off within the Control universe, James coming in on YouTube chat saying, it's an absolute masterpiece, one of his favourite games of all time. I'd agree with that. I absolutely adore Control. It's a fantastic game, and the idea of expanding that universe with different spin-off games is a brilliant idea. It just makes it's an exciting thing initially. It got me hooked from the initial trailer, but certainly going hands-on with it really didn't deliver, especially in terms of progression. FTW mentioning as well in YouTube chat, love Control and Alan Wake 2, but didn't have any interest in this one. I wonder if the multiplayer side of it, if it's kind of had a bit of a Redfall moment, that Arcane Austin were not known for making those kind of games, and neither are Remedy. It's their first multiplayer title. So I think there's definitely elements here that are undercooked, and it's going to be a case of them looking at it in terms of progression and onboarding if they want this to have a future.
For me, it looked like it was, one of those Source games like Left 4 Dead. It looked like the same sort of, it was almost like a mod for another shooter, but it needed each class to have like a pistol or something, an actual weapon that you can just shoot with, and it feels natural, like you're playing an FPS. The problem was because all like the default guns or weapons were kind of weird. It just didn't feel good for me to play. I think they were trying to do too much for their first game, trying to be too different. Yeah,
it's sort of, I think its scope perhaps ballooned a little bit from what they could deliver. Final headline for our first section tonight of the show is some unfortunate news at Bithell Games. These guys responsible for Tron Catalyst, John Wick Hex, Volume, Thomas Was Alone. They've got a real legacy of incredible indie games, and real shame. Jess Hardy knows. Thank you so much for jumping on Twitch. Great to see you. If James asking if you had to play this or Concord only for a month straight, I'd pick Concord, because Concord's an objectively better game to play, even though it still didn't last more than 2 weeks. But we've got some unfortunate news. Bithell Games has laid off the majority of its full-time staff. They haven't closed per se, but they are certainly a shell of their former selves. I really hope that all those developers land on their feet, and because there's some real talent at that studio. I adored John Wick Hex. I love Thomas Was Alone. Played that on my Vita back in the day, and hadn't played it, but Tron Catalyst looked really, really interesting. Looked really slick for a game that was ostensibly a tie-in. It's not actually based on a specific film, but it's obviously set within that universe. And it's just a real shame. Grease Punk, thank you so much for jumping in on Twitch. Just a little shout out to those guys over there, to John Hankey and the guys at Grease Punk. We have an episode of Some Drivel where we were very lucky and very fortunate to interview John about his experience working on Grease Punk. So please look out for that in September. That is coming up soon. We'll have more details to announce through our Discord. But yeah, it's a real shame. And I very much hope that this team either manages to secure some more work, maybe some partnership work, or working on a third-party title. or indeed get some funding to try and find their way through this, because that is rough in a long string of studios and indie developers and big developers all feeling the pinch at the moment as the industry contracts a little bit and struggles. So yeah, real shame this one.
It's tough because we say all the time, and especially with like all the Microsoft cancellations and closures, it's they're pushing teams too far, expanding too quickly. This obviously isn't the case in this situation. It's a small basically indie developer, very small numbers. You follow the trajectory of their games, and they're not like massively getting more ambitious and huge budgets and things like that. So they seem to have been quite careful. So it is just a sign that it can kind of happen to any teams almost. They're teams that are being quite responsible and working within their means. It's still a risk at the moment,
for sure, and especially in this case, achieving both commercial and critical success. With many of their games in the past, it's no longer a certainty, that viability moving forward, which is scary. And again, just hope these guys manage to chart a new path forward. Folks, that will do it for our headlines for the first part of our new System Link format. Please stick with us. We're going to be diving in to our impressions of both Mafia: The Old Country and the recently finished Battlefield 6 beta. Stay tuned. Okay, so kicking things off with Battlefield 6. Mike and I have extensively played both weekends of the beta, and I think it's fair to say that when we had managed to get some good time on Liberation Peak, sort of the more traditional, open, large-scale warfare that I think certainly Battlefield is synonymous with. That definitely spun the experience of the beta more positively for me. I had really struggled with some of the more clusterfuck, tight corridor maps that actually 3 out of the 4 of the maps were very, very restricted. 2 of them, in fact, couldn't have vehicles on them. But Liberation Peak was almost like one of the best Battlefield maps I think I've ever played. It's really, really exciting to see that game come together, especially off the back of 2042, and just how much I kept wanting to go back. And actually, I will give the New York map a shout out, even though, again, a slightly tighter map, really, really well designed. It didn't feel like you were quite being flanked from 8 different angles like you do on Siege of Cairo. I had a particularly good time as well, blasting my way through and holding certain objectives, like the D objective in Liberation Peak, right in the center. C and D, the sort of like the cross points of the map. Always iconic, always great fun. And yeah, just had an absolute blast. I'm now feeling very optimistic and looking forward to the full release. I do think, though, we need to see some more of those classic Battlefield large-scale maps. I think that's sorely missing right now. It's a beta, it's a snapshot, but and they have announced a remake of Operation Firestorm, which is from it's on screen right now, from Battlefield 3. So yeah, there's definitely scope there, I think, for some improvements for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a risk that, because you still want in Bad Company 2, which I think is both our favourite Battlefield games, there's 1 or 2 huge maps that don't really have a lot in between the bases, and that sometimes may not be that fun to play, like Assault Class or something, which I think is a risk. But Battlefield, for me, Battlefield is about having a couple of those maps in each release. Like Liberation Peak isn't big enough, isn't one of those maps for me. Although it was much bigger and you got jets and things, it's still on a scale compared to some of the previous Battlefield maps. Is still, for me, not a huge map.
No, you think about Atacama Desert and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't even compare.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'd want to see a couple of maps like that are just completely different and quite sparse, to vary up. But overall, I was trying to be very, very cautious before the beta, tempering expectations, because people had seen trailers and oh, this is great, I've pre-ordered it, having said they were never going to pre-order another Battlefield game. But as soon as you got in, you could tell that it was kind of back to, it felt like somewhat old school Battlefield. I had a bad time with the controls initially. It felt really off to me, but on my second session, I kind of followed a guide online to change them up, and it made a massive difference. And then when we played the bigger map, it felt
really
natural.
clicked, right?
And I would encourage people to watch our stream of that from the was it the weekend?
Yeah.
Because I think you can see how much we're enjoying playing that. It was just like old times, really.
100%. Just going now to our YouTube chat, a few things jumping in there. James, yes, there will indeed be a campaign, single player campaign is going to be added to the game at launch, and also a Ripple Effect are working on a battle royale, although that is not confirmed for day one. Tom, 909, good evening. Thank you so much for jumping in. Cat for Kills as well. I totally hear you on the reaction speeds. Whenever I'm playing stuff like the finals, I feel myself actively concentrating more, and I felt that very much in Battlefield 6. Like it was requiring more of me to be competitive, particularly in some of the ways you have to like check your angles and respond to a jet buzzing you overhead. You know, there's a lot going on. Yeah, no, it's been very humbling. I hear you on that for sure. I'm glad to know that Battlefield is ticking boxes for you as well, Tom. That's great.
We're used to the finals, and so coming into this where you can get one shot killed quite frequently, especially by snipers, is quite humbling. And you have it's hard, isn't it? It's one of those where you'll get one shot killed and you think, okay, I'm going to slow it down and check my angles, and then you're punished for moving around too slowly, because then people can just mow you down if they sneak up on you. So it's
for
tough.
Sure.
You need to learn the maps.
Well, speaking of learning the maps, I found something I really struggle with, actually, as I've mentioned previously, is that I don't like the way that destruction was implemented on those other smaller maps. I think it's a bit inconsistent in terms of its visual language and things that seem like they should break but don't. It's kind of an age-old problem with Battlefield. Not something they've ever really perfected, but they've certainly done better versions of it, I think, in games like Bad Company 2. Liberation Peak addressed a lot of that. I mean, that map is almost 90%, I think, destructible, and really addressed that, which was great. Which was handy. I hear you, James, about the snipers. I get that, but then there was enough environmental cover and opportunities to flank that I think addressed that problem. I didn't feel like they dominated perhaps in the same way that in some Battlefield games it becomes a real issue. People like bedding down almost on the map boundary and making it really tough to get at them.
I also think the shine on the scope for me is enough of a mitigation for the snipers. Like, I got sniped a few times, but it wasn't. I found the first time I played with the assault having shotgun as the secondary weapon was much more of an issue for me. But I didn't find that on the second and third time I played. But I didn't, to be honest, didn't find the snipers to be a massive issue. But maybe I was just got lucky, and because we only played that map a couple of times.
Well, I found generally that vehicles didn't dominate particularly either, which I think is great. They've definitely rebalanced that. In 2042, if you were in a tank, you won. Like, just because the maps had no cover, they'd scaled up to 128 players. There was no cover, there was huge open spaces, and vehicles just dominated in that game. Whereas I think in this, it was much more measured, which was really great to see. Shame that you getting spawn kill. I think that potentially, James, could be a beta issue, given the fact that the game... That kind of thing, I think, is solvable before launch. That will be tweakable. Things like the destruction clarity, I think that's fundamentally one of the core pillars of the design. I don't think that's going to change. I found it was magnified, particularly on the Empire State map and the New York map, because there were several instances where I was running through buildings that you could destroy the facade, go inside them. One part of them you could go upstairs, and the other would have like doors that sometimes the internal doors would open and sometimes they wouldn't. Now that's not destruction, that's just routes and accessibility. And there was definitely some key moments there that became quite frustrating, because there were cut-throughs that you could do in other buildings that looked almost identical that you couldn't do in others, and that was really tricky. I get there will be a balanced reason for that, to prevent too many flanks in a particular objective. I do get that, but I definitely came up against tangible moments where I tried to cut through to either flank someone or escape and was prevented from doing so because of the map design. And then I couldn't blow through the wall to then get to that. So that was tricky. Definitely a down moment for me.
Yeah, we talked about this offline, and I think my argument was the realism of the graphics and how the maps are designed is kind of the trade-off. For them to be completely destructible would be basically impossible. But then, having played it, I think I would prefer the maps were just a bit less realistic, and you had some sort of visual indicator. Like, you don't even need to have internal doors if they're not usable. Just have a wall there. Don't put a door there. No one's going to think, why are all the doors in this building? Because there's so much set dressing in the buildings compared to something like the finals. I to be honest only had one. I had one thing I think on the base on Liberation Peak. That there's a base with like a sandbag tower that can't be destroyed, which is pretty annoying because it looks like such a flimsy tower.
Oh, I know what you mean. It's like the little, like on C, isn't it? It's up the top. You can shoot it and blow out some of the like cosmetics around it, like some of the textures around it, but then the actual structure stays there, doesn't it? It kind of holds its form, which is really frustrating.
There was one which I think was probably a glitch, where it was just like a house, and the corner of the house, the corner wall, both the front wall and the side wall were destructible, but there was like a corner bit that couldn't be destroyed, and it was just annoying because there was someone hiding in the building. I thought I'm just going to blow that out, and then the roof will collapse, and you just couldn't do it, or it wasn't registering. You know, I shot it a couple of times with RPGs, and it didn't blow out. So, but overall, it's sad because you could play Bad Company 2 like this, but I don't think you can play Battlefield now in a way that you really uses the destruction as a weapon or even as a tactic, particularly.
No, it's set dressing. It's set dressing, isn't it? It looks great, but I don't think it particularly impacts gameplay in the way that I think the Finals and Bad Company 2 does a lot better, where there are tangible moments where you could outflank someone because you're using the environment to your advantage. Exactly. And equally, I was getting overwhelmed in a sense. There'd be many instances where I'd be hiding behind something and my cover would be blown out, forcing me to move. And those are Battlefield moments for me. When I think about Battlefield 1943, that is the things I really identify as like my favourite memories from it.
I think you basically have to be in a tank to be able to use it. Like if someone's hiding in a building, you can shoot it with a tank and you'll probably be able to kill them by like destroying the wall and then following it up with a... But if you're like an engineer, I think it's unrealistic to expect to be able to like blow the wall out with an RPG and then kill the guy. Like I don't think I had any instances of that when I was playing.
I certainly didn't. Yeah. Just going back now to YouTube and Twitch chat, Tom909 saying, I always find it funny how an RPG would level a building but just leave a soldier laying there in one piece. Yeah, I think that must be to do with the rating of the game, that they don't just eviscerate themselves into Terra Masalata, which is hilarious. Love you guys just mentioning about anime as well. You guys now being converted, that's hilarious. James mentioning about progression. I agree that I think, and recent Battlefield games have had this problem where the menus are sort of really sort of wonky and a bit overcomplicated. We definitely had some issues with the server browser, the custom server browser, where it would dump you into, you'd specify only a certain map. We were trying to play Liberation Peak, and it would then put you into the start of another game. So technically, you'd started at the very, very end of the previous, which was Liberation, and then got put elsewhere. Progression, actually, I think was handled quite well. I like the MVP approach where they showed you your progression. Of course I did, soaking that up. But the showing like top squad, but also you having a career best round, I thought was a really nice feature. That was really, really nice. Actually, take a look at that line graph on the closing screen, because it shows you your team's progression really cool throughout the level. So there's some really good visual indicators. If you know where to look, there's some really good stuff in there that's definitely worth checking out. And
just on that quickly, for like, what I love about Bad Company 2, sorry to keep mentioning Bad Company 2, but all the weapons were really well balanced, and there was basically no progression, but like shooters didn't really have progression so much back then. But it was, I would prefer all the guns are equally good. You can swap sights and things to suit your preference, but I don't want people that have leveled up past me to have a better gun than me or better scope than me, really. I want it to be level from the start. So as much as it's important that you feel like you're moving on and getting some rewards for leveling up, I'm not really in favor of like skill boosting.
I hear you. Let it be defined by your gameplay, not by how long you've played it. I think that, I agree. That affects equipment. Tom909 mentioning that he's deliberately not played the beta because he loves old Battlefield so much, he didn't want to play any kind of unfinished version. Was optimistic though from what I've seen and heard until seeing some Rush. I didn't actually play Rush in the beta, but I will say this: you've got reasons to be optimistic about this thing. In a way that I don't think they had a lot of goodwill coming into it. 2042, I think, really soured a lot of that. They have course corrected in a meaningful way, in a way that's not just hyperbolic. I think it's really exciting in a way that I'm not particularly enamored with what they're doing with Black Ops 7. I think this is a relevant tangent because seeing what they've shown of that now, they kind of, as much as I like the idea of a campaign co-op in a Call of Duty game, I think that's really cool. They're really pushing into that sort of like alternate history, near future warfare, and just from the character designs and skins and just the way it's looking, they're going a bit sort of almost like psychological horror shooter with it as well, which is interesting. Is they're daring to be different, which I like, but this is the symptom of it being a yearly release. It's almost like they need now. These changes have less impact because they feel like they have to do something to justify the yearly release. If this would have been a gap, if there'd been 3 years between Black Ops 6 and 7, and then 7 came out looking like this, I think I'd be immediately more interested in it because they've been some time away.
I do think it's a good thing, though, that it looks so different to Battlefield, because we've had years where Battlefield and COD have basically looked really similar. So I think there's space for both of them to do well this year, because Black Ops is going in a weird direction.
Yeah, it's not particularly interesting me, but I think the fact that it's on Game Pass again 2 years running lowers the barrier. It didn't cannibalize sales. That thing was an absolute sales monster last year, so it clearly did the business for them. Interesting, James, saying about the campaign in Black Ops 6 being the best he'd played in years. I think the last one I really cared about was Modern Warfare 1, the reboot of that campaign was really well done. I
am really looking forward to the co-op of Black Ops. Just being able to play through a cinematic FPS like that in co-op is something I don't know the last time I was able to do that in a game. So I don't have any interest in a multiplayer, so but that's kind of ticking boxes for me at the moment.
I'm actually way more interested in the campaign this time than I am the multiplayer.
Which is weird to say in a
unusual game. Yeah, I never thought I'd say that. So switching gears to a game I've been anticipating really massively this year, which was Mafia: The Old Country, a long in development now prequel to the Mafia franchise. I'm probably a good third of the way in now. I've held off on reviewing it. I want to get through to the end because it's only a 12, 13 hour game. First of all, on that, I just want to say more of this, please, developers. $44.99, tight 13-hour single-player experience. They've actually announced, I think it's sold really well. I think it's done well. There was saw an article saying that it sold just under 1 million copies in a couple of days across all platforms, which is really cool for a single-player only game where this franchise had been away for a while. I am really, really enjoying it. I would love to see more teams dipping toes into this kind of experience where it's sort of very focused and deliberately, like, it might have the implication of scope, but it's very tightly targeted, and it's got a very specific kind of core path through it. Developers have announced that they are planning on adding a free roam mode to the game with additional missions and stuff and optional explorative stuff, which is really cool. I think that's a nice way of handling that. Keeping people invested in the game when they've obviously then blasted through it relatively quickly. I will say this, it's like mechanically not particularly robust. Like I've played better third-person cover shooters. I've played better adventure games in terms of those elements. Seeing here on the screen the melee combat, it's actually really well done. That's probably one of the little knife duels you have in the game. There's several of them. Really well developed. There's a lot of nuance to that combat system. It's very slick and very well done. But the rest of it's fairly functional. Like, it's not particularly remarkable. It wasn't sort of making me feel like, oh, this is super slick or really sort of pushing the boat out in terms of mechanics. AI is fairly rudimentary as well. Like, it's not bad by any stretch. It's not like it's glitchy or it's undercooked. But it certainly isn't trying, I don't think, to do anything particularly unique in that area. But the quality of the cutscenes, I've got to give a shout out to whoever was directing this game. And the cast that are performing these characters, the motion capture, the nuance of the performances, it's really subtle. It's got I think the same. I put it on par with a Naughty Dog game in terms of the quality of the production of it. I'm not as sort of fully locked in and invested with the characters yet because I'm still relatively early, and it's quite a slow start. Like it's got a little bit more of a sort of, I hate the term walking simulator, but people understand when I say that. You do some fairly sort of like menial tasks. Your character's really working his way out from nothing. So it doesn't just throw you into the action like the trailer suggests here. It's fairly languid pace, actually. It's very slow in the beginning. But it feels very immersing, and you just want to be in the world and see the story unfold. I think that's why it's really connecting with me. It's certainly not an action game. It's much slower than that, and then has these big. I think it then earns these bigger moments where there's a bit of a set piece or a bit of combat. It is slow, but just enjoying the hell out of it. It's been great fun, and I'm glad this is the game that we have been saying on System Link with other developers that they shouldn't overreach You know, Mafia 3 wasn't
totally.
universally well received. It was a big open world game. The first time that Mafia did a proper open world title, because Mafia's 1 and 2 were sort of open linear, this is exactly what you should do. Go back to basics, fill in a gap in the story, simplify the gameplay, make a polished, tight, targeted experience. And that is exactly what Mafia the Old Country offers.
Yeah, and this sort of game is exactly what I like. I don't particularly enjoy all action games. I need action and then some downtime where you're like walking somewhere or having conversations with people, watching cutscenes, doing some menial tasks or driving around or something. I don't like shooters that are just constant action all the way through. And the cutscenes in this and the voice acting are really what interests me about it. You should try and get some other people involved on some drivel or something, because it'd be really interesting to hear about the kind of, because we talked about Hellblade, which is obviously like as cinematic as you can get in terms of the focus they put on it, and having like a whole studio in the developers just for the motion capture and stuff. But this feels like a nice balance where you've got gameplay. You know, it's not a walking simulator by any means, but you've got the quality of the cutscenes and the storyline that kind of set it apart from some of the other games out there.
For sure. I can speak to that too, because they do some really nice work with transitioning from gameplay to cutscenes. Some really good like the camera work is outstanding in this game. Like it's been very well directed. It's very filmic in that sense. It's got a really clear visual direction to it. And there's actually a lot more nuance I found with like character upgrades, and like there's like 8 different varieties of knife that you can buy in the game that each have different effects and buffs. You have to continually sharpen your knife as well, which is really cool. Actually, those mechanics are a lot more nuanced than I was expecting. There's a lot of depth to that. It's the actual minute-to-minute gameplay, like the stealth sequences or any kind of like cover shooting. It's just very, very basic. But I think it's... thank you, James. Thank you for the compliment there. But I think it's very, very accessible, and if you're someone that's not played previous Mafia games, this is an excellent jumping in point, because then the series does open up a little bit as it goes on. We've got Mafia Remastered, which is a fantastic remake, by the way. They did a superb job on that game. It's a really from a ground up rebuilt game, and I think would actually probably follow this quite nicely in terms of pacing and gameplay style. Mafia 2 less so, because it's only been remastered. Same with 3. They very much feel like products of their time, but certainly Old Country, and then leading into Mafia 1, I think you'd have a really good time with that. So yeah, folks, definitely worth checking out. We are now going to be jumping into our deep dive, which is obviously from our title of our stream tonight. On Gamescom 2025, we're going to be looking at some highlights, and we'll be back with our thoughts on what's going on at Gamescom. So, Gamescom is upon us. We are here. We've had Opening Night Live, Jeff's big showcase. There's a few games in that I wanted to highlight. Has anything sort of particularly stood out to you from the last sort of 48 hours? Something you wanted to throw in and mention?
Not especially. I think the community question was interesting, because I can't remember who it was, but someone was saying like there's not particularly anything coming this year that's really jumping out. And I'm kind of in that boat, other than we'll get to it later. I'll save it, but I didn't think it was a particularly great opening night. Kind of the stuff that's stood out has come kind of just tidbits that have come out from developers since, or from the Xbox thing. But yeah, it came out of nowhere as well, to be honest. I was kind of unprepared for Gamescom because we didn't have a system last week. So
I know normally we have like a predictions thing or whatever, but we didn't have a chance to do that. I didn't end up seeing the whole showcase, but I've picked out certain games that really caught my eye. And seen the footage of. One thing I did not expect to be so enamored by was Lego Batman, Legacy of the Dark Knight. I'm so excited for this, in a way that I haven't been in any way enthusiastic about Lego games, not really since the Skywalker Saga, which was their last game, but there was a run of the previous that I didn't really connect with and wasn't really interested in. This is an open world co-op Lego game with the Arkham game style combat. And it directly draws inspiration from both the comics and the films, with touchstones to both the Nolan trilogy. Matt Reeves is the Batman. With their sort of TT Games signature humor. I am really looking forward to this. This looks fantastic.
I did watch the trailer for this, and I agree. It looks like it's not for me, but it looks great, and the open world stuff looks really well done. It'd be interesting to see just how that works in practice. But it was showed very well for sure.
Disappointing to see only local co-op on it. There's no online support with this, which is a shame. Really odd, I think. Something like having this on PlayStation though, where you've got share play and you can then pass the controller to someone. I think this could be fantastic about that. James mentioning about the showstopper games either being released or announced. I do think Jeff holds stuff back for the Game Awards. I really do believe that. I think that's definitely a thing, and you can see that from the announcements we typically get at the end of the year as they're setting up 2026 and beyond. I do think they do hold off for sure. Jess Hardy knows mentioning on Twitch, Lego games are how they got into gaming, so I can't wait for this. That's just awesome. That's so cool that this is going to be the one thing that is going to be like a real touchstone for you. And Tom No saying Lego Batman looks bloody awesome. Yeah, I think the inspiration from the comics, I agree, is really cool. But there's definitely like this sequence here is drawn directly from Matt Reeves' The Batman, which is really great. With Batman stepping on rubber ducks as he's walking. It's just hilarious. Just great humor, and I think this was a real highlight for me. Another trailer, complete genre shift now, but was Resident Evil Requiem. This gave me such Resident Evil 3 Nemesis vibes, the feeling of being that sort of hunted character there. I have seen since, and I haven't got it on stream, but I did see a really interesting demo from Gamescom of the lead character, the daughter here, being stalked by a figure, and it was full gameplay, and it really evoked the sort of classic Resident Evil 3 experience, and I'm shitting my nicks on this one. Like I'm really nervous about it. My wife is obsessed with Resident Evil, and I really enjoy them too, but she loves watching me shit myself playing them, so I think this is definitely going to be something I end up picking up. And I like the sort of they're keeping it survival horror. Then they're not going the Resident Evil 6 route where it just became an action game. They're keeping it very focused and very grounded. It grounded it within the context of the world, of course. And yeah, between 7, 8, and now this, I think is really exciting. This showed very well.
Yeah, I didn't see this one, but just watching it now, it looked just classic Resident Evil, isn't it? Which is nice to kind of see and get a bit of balance. But yeah, I can't deal with Resident Evil. It's too much for me.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Just shouting back out now to FTW and YouTube, just mentioning how they even showed the gel, the Arkham explosive gel. Lego Batman's using the same thing in the trailer, which is really cool. That's a good catch. I didn't see that, so well done. I have always been quite soft on the Outer Worlds, but this trailer I really enjoyed. This is the Companions trailer for the Outer Worlds 2. They continue to have some really good marketing with this game. They're being very self-aware and very sort of self-deprecating as well about the graphics of the game, and the fact they make a joke in this about how you can't romance any of them. It does. The more I'm seeing of this, the more I'm intrigued. And I played the Outer Worlds 1. I only got a few hours in and found the combat and that side of it really lacking, and it kind of it put me off it. I've always felt like I have a bit of an Obsidian gap in my gaming. Like I haven't played Avowed. I haven't touched Grounded 2 yet, and this obviously now we've got this coming up. I do think it's showing well. I think visually it's looking really cool. And very Obsidian. It looks sort of like that Swimming in 8s, which is exactly what you want from them. Cranking out games too, like the amount we're getting from them this generation has been crazy. But I'm intrigued by it.
I enjoyed Outer Worlds 1. I'm kind of still playing it, still working my way through it. So this doesn't particularly interest me just because it looks so for me it looks so similar. Maybe people who've completed Outer Worlds 1 think it's iterating enough, but for me it looks so similar, like even graphically, that I wouldn't be interested in it until I've completed Outer Worlds 1, and then I think I would be ready for a bit of a break from it. I'd probably go to Avowed after that, which I like you, I haven't played yet. So yeah, it's not doing it for me, but I think it, like you say, it's going to score pretty well. It'll be 8s, like you say, which will be good for Xbox.
Yeah. Tom in YouTube chat just asking about Vampire Bloodlines, which is, I'd seen a really wonky article on Eurogamer talking about how that there's some weird stuff with the pricing, like being able to access all the content in it. You have to like almost like double dip in the game. There's some really, and it's had some quite high profile delays and stuff. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. I need to maybe look into that a bit more. I can't really speak to it very much. Interesting, FTW mentioning that Obsidian's best game is still New Vegas. Obviously, we've got the Fallout Season 2 trailer, which looked awesome. I would like to commit us to an absolute candor run when Fallout Season 2 drops. So I need to catch up on Season 1.
Come on.
Yeah, I need to catch up there, bud, and get that done. But that's definitely on the cards. We also, as huge Star Trek fans, I'm always intrigued. I'm always excited when a new Star Trek game gets announced. Star Trek Infection is a VR only game, which immediately put me off, and it does look pretty ropey graphically. I'd be very concerned about that in terms of motion sickness in VR. It does have a very cool concept though. It was interesting that they sort of lent into the horror genre with this, and you play a Vulcan as well. So there's, I did read up in the sort of some of the previews coming out of Gamescom. You can do a Vulcan nerve pinch in VR, which is very
I saw
cool.
In the trailer there was a nerve
mind
pinch,
meld as well. I think at one point in there. I do think Star Trek lends itself very well to first person VR conceptually. I think it's really, really clever because like one of my favorite games of all time in the Star Trek franchise was Elite Force. Both Elite Forces 1 and 2 in first person was awesome and was always so immersing and really, really engaging in that sense. So I get it. I think it makes sense. I would have loved to have seen this game be playable on a traditional controller with VR as an option. And we've seen a few games like Alien Incursion recently, which was a VR exclusive title, is now being ported to traditional consoles. So there's certainly the possibility that this could happen. We've had a few Star Trek games come out in the last couple of years. We've had Resurgence, we had Infinite, and obviously now we've got Star Trek Infection coming out soon as well. Yeah.
All a bit ropey. It's fair to say.
Yeah, bit of a ropey run.
I think you expect a bit of ropiness from some VR games, maybe, but I don't think the story makes a lot of sense from a Star Trek point of view. Obviously, occasionally we get kind of episodes of Star Trek that lean into horror. I would have preferred it to be the Borg or. Mm-hmm. Species 8472, or like where we've seen the Gorn from Strange New Worlds, like where we've seen tie-in, right? Where we've actually seen horror elements. It just looks a bit kind of random, like they've put the license on it because they've found they were able to get it. For me, it would be enough just in a VR Star Trek game. I almost just want like bridge crew. I just want to be in charge of the ship in VR. I don't really need this crazy storyline. I want some people to talk to and like pads to tap on and interact.
Let me do the red alert.
And stuff.
Absolutely, Exactly. And that's where I wish Bridge Crew had been set in the Prime timeline, not in the J.J. Abrams universe, because that aesthetic I think just looks really generic and didn't excite me. The idea of being on like Voyager in VR would just be so cool, and I think there's definitely scope for this to potentially make the jump. I don't think it's unique enough as an experience that it couldn't then translate to a controller. We've seen the Alien Incursion done that, so hopefully something we'll see them adapt in the future. Something that's probably my highlight of the show actually was Ghost of Yotei. I had a fantastic trailer from Sucker Punch, but they also confirmed something that I'm thrilled about, which is that they're going to be bringing back the Legends co-op mode after launch, just like they did with Ghost of Tsushima, the first game. It's going to have 2-player campaign sort of co-op missions, dedicated co-op missions, very much in the same style as Splinter Cell Conviction, which had a dedicated co-op campaign for 2 players, and then the 4-player survival mode will be making a return as well. I'm absolutely thrilled about this. I cannot wait, because the combat in Ghost of Tsushima is probably I would say the best sword fighting combat of that type I've ever played, even more so than God of War. I think it's absolutely brilliant, really satisfying, and a great world to poke around in. And the fact that they're bringing back the Legends mode again after launch, giving you a few months to sit with the campaign. The stories are quite extensive in those games, are quite epics. And yeah, it's the fact that they're going to bring that back as in 2026 as a co-op mode for free as well. It's going to be a free update. Is really exciting. I think this showed very well at a time when Sony's first party is still a bit obscured. We've had a lot of cancellations, a lot of developers we don't really know what they're working on right now because of said cancellations. So this was definitely an appreciated win for them for sure.
Oh, it looks great, and I saw some criticism of it that it didn't look like enough of a visual jump, but it looks visually fantastic
Stunning
to me.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
This trailer in particular, like you say, is showing really well.
And finally, keeping with the sort of that same theme, for the first time, I'm actually now excited about Ninja Gaiden 4. I was
going to say the same. I didn't know if you had it in your list because this.
Yeah.
I watched a Ninja Gaiden trailer and I don't know why, but when it was announced, it just didn't excite me that much. But watching this trailer, it just really evoked the previous Ninja Gaiden games.
Yes,
but you can see that it's just
it.
so tight, the combat, that I'm really looking forward to it now. All of a sudden,
I'm glad you spoke to that because for me, when it was originally announced, it was a lot like anything they showed was just gameplay because it was cut between like developer talking heads, and the gameplay just looked like really like the environments looked really bland, and it was just like relentless combat. Whereas this interspersed the story context with some bosses, with some of the cutscenes, with like it looks like some of those boss fights with like the custom executions and stuff just looked amazing, and I think the additional character context and seeing their designs and stuff, seeing Ryo pop up in there as well, it just really, like you say, evoked the old games, and I suddenly became very interested. Like the fact that this is a Game Pass title as well, so excited about that. And yeah, I think this is definitely kind of jumped up my anticipated list for this year for sure. In a way that I wasn't expecting at all, actually. I really, really wasn't ready for this to be as exciting as it was. So, yeah, no, I'm well chuffed with it. I think I'm definitely going to be one to keep an eye on for sure. So, just making sure I am still functional here, because I just had a bit of a wonky moment with my OBS. Chat, are we
I saw it just went black on the stream.
Yeah, are we still visible? Chat, are we still going here? Hopefully so. Yes, absolutely. This would be something I'd love to play on the Xbox ROG Ally for sure. Pull up the Discord. There we go. Now I think we're back. Now I think we're good. So we also have our community question talking about the most anticipated games of this year. Just saying there that Ninja Gaiden definitely had definitely gone up in my estimations for sure. I'm very excited about that. But we asked our Discord community to weigh in on stuff they're looking forward to. Anyone in chat here that hasn't weighed in on our Discord, please feel free to jump in here. What are you most looking forward to in 2025 for the rest of this year? So just looking ahead now, going back to our Discord chat. Let's make sure I'm still working here. Yet we are good. Bossinator straight away mentioned Borderlands 4. So I am currently playing through the Borderlands franchise with my stepdaughter, really enjoying that. And then we had FTW also mentioned several games actually. MGS Delta looks awesome, like graphically just looks stunning. Shinobi, Chronos is going to be another shit my pants game. I think that might be coming to Game Pass, although I'm not 100% sure on that. As well as Silent Hill F, which is really cool. Hein Kikamori also mentioned Ninja Gaiden 4. Yeah, Platinum and Team Ninja is just like match made in heaven. Right, like that is just a great combination. The big one I think is, and Xbox have been making a big deal out of this because it's coming to Game Pass as well, is Hollow Knight. Jessica from Big Manic Studios mentioned the Hollow Knight is coming. I don't have any history with Hollow Knight, so I don't have that same hype, but people are going nuts for it.
I know, it's crazy. Like you get some quite big games at Gamescom, and everyone's just going crazy over Hollow Knight. I think it's a bit over the top for me. It's almost like meme level hype for it, which is like the team are not going to be able to live up to that. So I hope people are fair and kind of have reasonable expectations when it comes out. But yeah, it's gone a bit crazy at Gamescom for it.
It's nuts, isn't it? Johnny mentioned Resident Evil Requiem as well, but also Battlefield 6 is some of his most anticipated. It's nice FTW still planning to play the first Outer Worlds before the second one drops. That's really cool. I think that's certainly for me. I think for sure. I think I need to get back on that. Resident Evil Requiem I think showed really well in this particular showcase, so I'm definitely excited for that. And actually, it was Double Fine's Keeper Looks really, really weird and original.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that. Another good Game Pass game. Jess Hardly Know is mentioning in chat that the main reason Silksong has the hype it does was because they announced it 6 years ago. So I think it's been the absence of updates that's been a big hook for a lot of people, keeping them invested.
I think
October is rammed. You're right, Tom. Having Ninja Gaiden in there, I think is it's a stacked month for sure. You're right.
I think having played Battlefield 6, that's high up my list. And a game that isn't at Gamescom, but Arc Raiders will be
My God,
very
I completely
high up.
forgot. That's going to be October
that
as
and
well.
Battlefield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Packed month. It's going to be crazy. Outer Worlds, Ninja Gaiden, Battlefield, and Arc Raiders all dropping in the same month. I think Arc Raiders is going to become a staple of our streams. Please get excited for that, because we certainly are. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to our latest episode of System Link, and for letting us pilot this new format. We really appreciate you jumping in. You can check us out on all of the things: Facebook, Instagram, Threads, as well as YouTube, Podbean, and Spotify at Burly Media. But also jump into our Discord community. It's really, really important. Really, really fun place for you to engage with us. It's really important. If you want to jump in, check it out, please do. You can also find us streaming every single Wednesday and Saturday with Burly Bird Live, but also our brand new series Dungeon Master in collaboration with Gaming Arcadia. That goes live every single Sunday, where you in chat get to mess with us. We did that first of all with Hitman, World of Assassination, but also Battlefield 6 last week. Please do consider jumping into that. We have a lot of fun with that. Mike, where can people find you?
I'm at theXboxGuide.com and at the Xbox Guide on Threads and Blue Sky.
Finally, I just want to say a huge shout out to chat this evening. This has been so lively and so engaging. Thank you for weighing in, for sticking with us. Please give us feedback as well in our Discord. Jump into our discussion with our live shows and streaming channel. Please jump in there. Let us know what you'd like us to add in the future, or stuff you think we should change. Any and all feedback is appreciated, folks. And we will see you next time.
See ya.